So according to the citizensinformation.ie, if you're renting your home from a local authority, you have certain responsibilities.
Yes.
Right? For example, you must pay the rent.
Yeah.
And you must not engage in antisocial behaviour. What is antisocial behaviour? Violence, threats, intimidation, and harassment. And if somebody is engaging in antisocial behaviour in a social housing, they can be evicted. So let's have a little look at what happened in the Hennessy, at the back of the Hennessy house, which we've revealed this week is actually a state-owned property. And it's been rented from Fingal County Council, who appear to be on the verge of moving in to reclaim that house, which I'm sure the community up there will be quite happy with.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's become a source of real controversy. There's obviously people living in social housing across the city and across Ireland. And some of these, a small number of these people, I suppose, are engaged in very extreme antisocial behaviour. But there is often a feeling within these communities that people, no matter what they do, don't get evicted. Now, Devin Hennessy, people will know that he has recently come before the courts and pleaded guilty to his role in a genuinely horrific. You can't overstate the level of violence inflicted on a man who was accused of being an informer, literally branded with the word rat. This all happened in the back of his family home.
21 Sheephill Avenue.
21 Sheephill Avenue. Now, as we said, it's since emerged that is in a private dwelling. And if that doesn't qualify as antisocial behaviour, what does?
The hell does? So, yes, now it appears that obviously, Fingal County Council have not totally ignored what has been going on up in that house and what has happened in the case of this man. We'll go into the details of it now in a minute. So, there is a situation that if somebody in your household is engaging in antisocial behaviour, you can apply for an excluding order against them. It depends on who's living in the house. Now, what we do know is that the Hennessy mother, Veronica Marr, is still living in the house. She is before the courts herself at the moment.
Yes, she's before the courts. But look, I mean, Fingal County Council have a very clear policy, or at least they claim to have had a very clear policy, where, they say they have, I'll read from it, they say Fingal County Council maintains a close liaison with the Garda authorities, the HSE and other statutory and non-statutory bodies in its efforts to remedy disharmony or problems in the estates, whether these be of an individual or family nature. As a local authority, Fingal County Council will do its utmost to deal with the problem of antisocial behaviour. So, look, this is we've seen this again and again. People make complaints about antisocial behaviour talking in general terms, both in Dublin City Council and in the other councils, people make complaints and they feel then that no matter what is going on in that house, that nothing arises out of it. Now, there are some people have been evicted over the years, but the number is really, really low. No
doubt it's difficult enough to carry out an investigation and to gather the evidence that you should so acquire. Now, I know it's not for, the level of proof that's required in a criminal case, but, if you have calls coming in, complaints been made about antisocial behaviour, I presume the housing officers have to go out and check that out and make sure that somebody isn't being falsely accused, etc. And they probably need some evidence of that. In the case of the Hennesseys, we have so far one guilty plea. Somebody has admitted this case. And this case was a torture carried out on the property, in the property, using the property. So
yes.
Essentially, the taxpayer has funded the facilitation of this torture so far.
Yes.
And the details of which were read out during a bail hearing, initially 5 men charged in relation to it, and a Detective Sergeant Mark Murphy objected to bail on a number of grounds, including fears of witness intimidation and the strength of the evidence, he said, against each accused. Now, this is when all 5 were charged. We have one guilty plea and we have others still before the courts with cases coming up.
Yeah,
soon
exactly.
enough. Okay, so he outlined the case, and he said that the victim went to the Hennessy family home, 21 Sheep Hill Avenue, where he was met by three brothers, Devon, Brandon and
Jason Jr.
Jr. Yes, of course, Jason Sr. Hennessy was killed, shot dead in the Brown Steakhouse on Christmas Eve of 2023.
2023.
Yeah. And later, he said, so the three brothers, and later they were joined by Kenneth Fitzsimons. They went to an outhouse at the rear of the property, the men, and during a conversation, the alleged victim had his phone snatched from his hand and was punched in the face by Jason Hennessy, the court was told. It's alleged the victim was told to tell the men the truth before Kenneth Fitzsimons grabbed a 5-foot steel bar and beat him across the leg 7 or 8 times. It was then alleged that the victim was asked about giving information to certain people and lying to his attackers. The court heard that Brandon Hennessy told the alleged victim he'd given him false information, knowing that he would provide it to others, and it's claimed he then grabbed a steel bar and beat him all over his body. Giving further evidence, it is claimed that Jason Hennessy took a cattle marker branding device with the word rat on it and said that he ignited a camping stove and heated that customised poker iron before applying it to the victim's forehead. Now, there was further information given about what happened, including that there was the use of a motorbike, to drive over his legs, and threats were made to the victim's family.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really, really obviously
waterboarded, of course, as well.
Waterboarded. This is the
claim.
This is the claim. So what happens when a report of antisocial behaviour goes to the county councils? Initially, they have to interact. They have to, they might give the tenants a warning. Now, the complicated bit of it is if you have a son, for example, who's engaged in antisocial behaviour, but the dad is the tenant, the official tenant, that can pose a big complication because the dad, for example, isn't doing the antisocial behaviour. But there will be a warning to a tenant, and then that has to be given in writing. I think especially, specifically given the opportunity then to. The consequences are told if you don't fix this, and you're given an opportunity to correct your action. And if that continues, then it goes to a court. And in some cases, people can just be kicked out, and then they have an opportunity to defend that in court, but they're actually told you have to leave. So all of this, we believe is going on in the background in relation to this home in Sheep Hill Avenue. Now, Sheep Hill Avenue in Corduff in West Dublin, following the arrest of Devon Hennessy and the others, I have been told by people, because we were doing stories about this in advance to the build-up to that the area has kind of been transformed really solely by these arrests, that before it all happened, that there was that the level of fear and intimidation was immense, and people were absolutely terrified of being targeted. There was homes being burnt out in the very close area. There was, we had a number of stories about cars being targeted, and there was open drug dealing. I mean, there was people come before the courts and being convicted for drug dealing in the area. Like, those estates are kind of outside the city. They're quite kind of isolated. It's not as if it's in a thoroughfare. So if the guards are coming in, it becomes quite public. Kind of a hard place to police, as we've seen in Limerick and some of those estates. So, we believe that there's certain serious moves, and it would lay down a marker, I suppose, for.
I mean, it's just extraordinary. So Jason Hennessy Sr. is dead.
Yes.
The three brothers are behind bars. One has already pleaded guilty in relation to this torturous attack on a victim. And the other two are before the Special Criminal Court, which is why we're able to talk to it. Veronica Marr, their mother, on the other hand, is before the non-special criminal courts on 2 charges.
Yes.
One is in relation to money laundering.
Yeah.
And the second is
an endangerment charge to do with the dogs that were in the home. And when the guards called, they claimed they were, attacked.
And these are XL bullies.
Yeah.
So that's the position at the moment. Now, she has obviously got the ability that everybody else has to defend herself against those
100%.
charges.
And we've heard, because the XL bullies were ultimately subject to separate proceedings, we did hear some of her defence, in particular that the dog escaped. It wasn't her fault. Certainly, she had attempted to not let the dog get out. And obviously, we haven't heard the specifics about the money, but, she's pled not guilty at this point.
And we'll follow that case onwards.
Yeah.
But yes, it would lay down a marker. And it's just, people who are out there, look, lots of people need the help of the state to get by. They need social housing. We know how many people are out there homeless and desperate for a house over their, kids living in hotel accommodation, trying to get to school, etc. The housing crisis in this country. So it is a bitter pill to swallow for those who work and believe in a social welfare system, that, you're lucky enough to have been educated, to have a good job, that you work, you pay your taxes into the system to help others who need it. And to see that money and those resources have gone into the likes of the Hennessy, in particular, father who was running a drug operation, and the brothers, two of whom have yet to their cases to be heard in front of the Special Criminal Court, but nonetheless, you'd like to see the councils moving in and evicting people like that who have caused nothing but upset in a community and fear.
Now, of course, like kicking people out of their homes is something that shouldn't be done lightly by the state. No doubt about it. And we have our own long history of this country about people being kicked out of their homes back to the famine. However, you have to look at the impact that criminality can have in a residential area. I mean, it is something that has a profound impact. It's not a matter of it's not something that's a casual thing. We've seen the level of fear and intimidation. Like in regards to some of the stuff that was alleged to be going on in that area, obviously Devin Hennessy has pled guilty to this torture attack. But I have also been told about other things that were alleged to have occurred, that people would say that at times you could hear screams going on as people were being subject to violence. People's hands in particular, a thing that's gone on over the years in gangland crime, where people might have fingers broken or bits of fingers chopped off.
This is nothing okay, you go back to our history and people have been evicted during the famine times and all the rest of it. I mean, this is absolutely nothing got to do with that. This is a group of thugs who are using a social housing, probably what is it, a 3 or 4 bed house?
Yeah.
There are lots of decent people out there who really badly need that house, and who would actually, contribute to society as opposed to take from it and destroy it and create utter destruction, harassment, fear within a community. And I know of stories from up around there as well, where people have been run out of the place.
Yeah.
People have been forced to leave their homes because of just those individuals.
Oh yeah, and not just one or two, many. And so
it's kind of like, you kind of think, why are we sitting back? Why are Fingal should be going in there?
Yeah.
And utilising the policies they claim to have and removing them from that home.
Yeah, so they can. I'll just tell you what they can do.
Yeah.
So they can get what's called an exclusion order. And this is from their own website to do with antisocial behaviour section that they have in it. Determination of the tenancy by a notice to quit is an option that the council will consider only as a last resort. In addition, excluding orders may be considered to deal with incidents where the antisocial behaviour is perpetrated by an occupier of the dwelling or a joint tenant. So you can go.
What that's saying is that, if you have a fundamentally decent family, you've one troubled individual there, you don't throw the whole family out. I mean, that makes complete sense, and I don't think any of us would consider it any other way.
But they have they have an option to exclude people from the home on this basis. It's part of the policy. It'll be part of the policy of anybody who agrees to live in one of their homes. It's not used a lot in Ireland.
Might be slightly difficult as well because, domestic situations are difficult to handle, domestic violence, etc. You could have an individual who, maybe keeps getting welcomed back into the home after a period of time and all the rest of it. And maybe the individuals themselves who sought the exclusion orders will break them, which is completely normal in coercively controlling relationships, which nearly always happen in domestic situations. Yeah. But I mean, I'm just looking in at this Hennessy situation and go on. Just read on.
Well, I mean, it gives you an examples of some of the antisocial behaviour, and some of it is really, if you were to read it, you would think people would be at danger of being kicked out all the time to do with graffiti and things like that. But you have to look at it and think, one of the real subsections of what you cannot breach would be a behaviour which causes or is likely to cause any significant or persistent danger, injury, damage, alarm, loss or fear of any person living, working or otherwise lawfully in the vicinity of a house provided by the Housing Authority under the Housing Acts 1966. Now, you would think that is a bar that has certainly been reached in this case.
100%. And you'd hope that Fingal, County Council and its housing unit are strong enough to go in there with the help of the Gardaí and to complete this eviction process.
Yes.
And, the house itself has become a weapon, nearly, to the Hennessy's, hasn't it?
Well, I mean...
as an entity.
Yeah,
it is where it's a no-go zone for people. Those who are told to come over, like the victim involved in this case, don't know what fate awaited them.
No, and we've seen, obviously, people will have seen the programme. I think was it on when it was Inside the K or the Guards?
Inside the K.
But we saw some of the confrontations around that area involving members of the Hennessy organised crime gang with Gardaí. I mean, the level of...
and the brothers were essentially using the house as their headquarters in every which way. I mean, in the same way you had that situation in Limerick where the Dundon... The Dundon McCarthy mob in particular were using their homes and their position in the community as a weapon of war against its own community.
100%. I mean, the Hyde Road actually is slightly different than that area, Corduff, because it's quite a main road coming out of Limerick City. But you could see it, and I've been up there many times, as is yourself, and called to the houses and everything. The Dundons were living in them. They had it was almost like a little fortress. They had their metal gates and everything like that. The homes surrounding them were nearly always empty. I think at one point during the Celtic Tiger or in or around it, the house next to Wayne Dundon's was the cheapest 3-bedroomed house for sale in the whole country because they would intimidate people out. Yeah. The people around them, so that would give them a sort of a barrier. Yeah. And it was they could then see what was going on. They could move people in and out of them. Really, the impact on the area was absolutely massive.
I'm sure there's other stories very similar to this one that we are talking about with the Hennessy family home in Sheep Hill Avenue in Corduff. I would just say if anybody out there knows of similar situations where there is convicted criminal or the houses have been used in this antisocial fashion, to get in touch. We'll be inundated now, will we?
Well, no, you're dead right? Because...
because around the country, I've no doubt there's other stories that we aren't aware of, maybe.
Oh, no, there's loads.
Look into.
And as well, there's people that are, there's people that put their neck out and make a complaint. Yeah. Right? About antisocial behaviour. And I know I've spoken to somebody very recently, somebody who was living in the broader southwest Dublin area, and they made complaints. They provided evidence. They provided CCTV or doorbell camera. Provided it to the council, and the council then would say, it doesn't look too bad, and they'd say, they'd say, well, it has to come from the guards. So they go to the guards, they'd report this, make a statement, which is a risk, these things. And then they go back to the council and say, we made this statement, and they'd ask the guards, and the guards would just send them the pulse record of that one incident. And they had to go back to the council and say, no, this has gone on. We've reported 12 incidents now.
Right.
And then they'd write to the guards, and the guards would only give them the individual pulse numbers, and the council would say, oh, there's nothing there. There's no convictions, for example. And even then, but they said, well, look, I mean, there's no convictions, but they're threatening to kill us here.
Yeah.
And we have evidence of it, and we've reported it. Nothing is, it's not proven yet. So, and nobody would ever, like there might be good guards, I'm not saying that, but you'd never get somebody, what you really need is sort of a superintendent or somebody like that in the local area to say, here's 20 things that have happened with these people. I'm putting it all together.
You need the systems to work together in order to work together. It needs to be proved in order to remove these people from the communities. Yeah. Now, where do they go?
Well, where do they go? I mean, I don't know, but sometimes there has to be
and you're taking them out. I suppose it's a little bit like dismantling a cell structure or a gang structure. Now, in the case of the Hennesseys, there's quite a few of them going to be in prison for quite some time, you would imagine, which is seriously going to dismantle and disrupt their operations. Jason Hennessy Sr. is dead. But you're dismantling it. So you're taking them out of the place which is their powerhouse or their fortress. And presumably they have to go. Do they put their name down on some new housing list in a different place, or what?
I don't know.
They have to get private rental.
I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that works.
Some of them will have prison accommodation now to rely upon and 3 meals a day. And obviously those hunger strikes we talked about didn't last. They are quite accepting the nice meals that they get in prison, and they have a roof over their head, etc. But you presumably have to go on into the homeless services if you are homeless.
Possibly. I mean, but I do think it is something that has a really, really deep impact on people's lives. So people are living in these circumstances, and it's not that it's it's an eyesore or something like that. It can really, really put people under huge, huge pressure.
But they've built up over years that sort of powerhouse in that community, and their strength and those around them that they have managed to get working for them and with them. So really, location has been key.
Totally, absolutely.
Success, absolutely. So you take them out of that location and you have disrupted and dismantled something there.
Oh, totally. And if you look at the Dundons in that part of Limerick, I mean, they had people living in terror, but they also had this kind of recruitment drive, really, of the local teenagers who
Were they council houses they were in?
They were council houses that some of them were bought. Some of
them were bought, yeah.
Yeah, and so there was there's complex things going on with some of them. Mostly they were bought privately at some point in 20, 30 years ago. So they couldn't be evicted for antisocial behaviour effectively. But it had such a deep impact on the community, and kids who were 14, 15 who would be hanging around in the street, they were just being recruited straight into this criminal gang. And if you look at Devin Hennessy and some of his associates, they had a lot of young lads around with them. A lot of the stuff was done by guys in their teens.
Kids.
Yeah, definitely. So it is something that's serious.
Okay, well, we will look forward to hearing from our listeners and our viewers on this. And do give us, if we can legally run a story here, we will around this. Perhaps there's a load of this stuff out there. So do come through on our social media channels or email us. Or contact either myself or Niall, on our social media. All our DMs are open. And we'll keep a good watching eye on that situation in Corduff with the Hennessy home.
Yeah.
Thanks, Niall.
Thanks, Nicola.
I'm Nicola Tallant, and you're watching Crime World, a podcast about criminals, drugs and the underworld in Ireland and across the globe. Make sure you subscribe to our channel and turn on notifications so you can be the first to watch all our latest episodes. You can also listen wherever you get your podcasts.